Michigan is still too close to call technically as of taping, but it's all but certainly going to go into Donald Trump's victory column. He and Kamala Harris visited the state over 50 times each, which was a clear signal that the campaign made the Great Lakes state a priority. Amber Duke, a co-host here on Rising, is on the ground in Lansing, Michigan, where she was covering the final day of campaigning, and she joins us now to discuss this historic moment. And I know, Amber, you changed your travel plans somewhat at the last minute to wanting to be where the action was, and you predicted that pretty well, no?
Yeah, I did. I was originally supposed to go to Pennsylvania because the two campaigns they both saw their path going through Pennsylvania. Trump with the Sun Belt plus Pennsylvania, and then Kamala with the Rust Belt plus Pennsylvania. But as election day creeped closer, it looked like Michigan was potentially going to be in play for the Trump campaign. Now, I was not so bullish that I thought he would potentially sweep the swing states, but certainly I thought Michigan and Wisconsin were on the table, and it looks like Michigan is probably going to break for Trump at this point. I think the last I checked, the New York Times has it in the very likely Republican category. And just to mention a few trends that I think are worth looking at according to the exit polling, we see Trump winning Latinos in Michigan by 25 points. Obviously, nationwide, he got about 45% of the Latino vote. That's a huge seismic shift for Trump. He also is potentially winning voters under the age of 30 in Michigan. And then another sizable group that's worth pointing out in the Rust Belt states, in particular, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, is Catholics, and specifically white Catholics. Trump increased his vote share with these groups basically by 100%. And these are sizable coalitions. Remember, about 25% of the U.S. population is Catholic, and that's even larger in some of these swing states, particularly among working class Catholics.
And what do you ascribe that to, Amber? Because, I mean, myself and Robbie were talking at the top of the show. I was given the view at the top of the show that Mr. Trump has been re-elected despite January the 6th and various other things that are part of a well-travelled catalogue of criticisms of him. Catholics in particular, people who by definition their faith is quite important to, why do you think they overlook what some people see as the crudeness of his personal behaviour to vote for him?
Well, they're not electing him Pope, right? We don't vote for our Pope. He gets chosen by people within the Vatican. They're voting for him for president. And I think people forgot the fundamentals of this election when Kamala Harris took over the nomination. People got very excited about vibes and joy and the fact that she wasn't basically a corpse in the White House. And they forgot that the economy, immigration are still the top two issues for voters. And that holds across a lot of different demographic groups. With Catholics in particular, they viewed the Kamala Harris administration, the Biden-Harris administration, as quite hostile to their religious beliefs. They didn't have the cover that they had when the Democrats didn't have the cover they had when Joe Biden was the nominee, that he is nominally Catholic, that he goes to Mass on Sundays. Kamala Harris is not seemingly practicing anything. I mean, she's nominally Christian. I'm not sure if she goes to church on a regular basis. And she made a couple of huge missteps, right? She skipped the Al Smith dinner, which I flagged at the time as a huge mistake. Trump went. She sent in a video message at the last minute that relied heavily on an SNL character. She said that there would be no religious exemptions for abortions, which is a huge red flag for people who work in Catholic healthcare, in Catholic hospitals. And then there was that Gretchen Whitmer TikTok video where she is seemingly mocking the Eucharist, feeding a Dorito chip to a liberal journalist, not to mention the fact that the Biden DOJ was targeting conservative Catholic Mass attendees by trying to put FBI undercover agents in there, suggesting that these people would become domestic terrorists. So I think the choice for a lot of Catholics was pretty obvious. Do we go with the guy who is at least paying us lip service, giving attention to us, has the Catholics for Trump coalition? I know that behind the scenes, people within the Trump campaign and externally were really looking to increase his vote share in Catholics. They put a lot of resources and time and thought into that effort. So I don't think it could have gone any other way because Kamala just simply ignored them, assuming that this was going to be the traditional sort of liberal Catholic voting bloc like it had been for the Kennedys, but things have changed.
Yeah, I'm a much lazier Catholic than you are, Amber, a lapsed Catholic, I would say. But even I found something a little disturbing about the Dorito incident you referenced. I was shaking my head at that one for sure. What is the mood like in Michigan? You know, on my way to work here today in the nation's capital, you know, I'm looking around for where are all the crying liberals? But it's a beautiful day in Washington today. I think business is just going to continue as usual. What's the mood in the swing state of Michigan? Republicans got to be really happy to have had this result in my home state.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of background, I was at the final Trump rally in Grand Rapids the night before the election. He showed up at 12:15, 15 minutes after midnight, spoke for about 2 hours, and the people there were super excited to see him. Obviously, the energy in Van Andel Arena was insane. And even when we got to the 1 a.m., 1:30 mark, there was still a sizable group of people there. You saw, obviously, some people leaving that early in the morning, but not enough to really make a dent in the crowd, which was about 12,000 people. The arena was pretty much totally full. And one thing I noticed there as well was that about half of the crowd was young people. And when I've gone to past Trump rallies, it's all baby boomers, right? It's all older people. This was not the case. This was like young bros. There were a lot of women with the hot girls for Trump hats on. And so when I saw these exit polls come out showing Trump winning the youth vote in Michigan, I wasn't totally surprised. Last night, I was at a Mike Rogers election night party, just about an hour east of Lansing, and the mood was obviously ebullient for Trump, but the Rogers race is still sort of pending. They think they're gonna probably pull it out, but it's much closer than the presidential is looking. So they were sort of cautiously optimistic, I would say.
Amber, just before we let you go, I'm just curious. I know you're not normally in the business of giving particular advice to the Democratic Party, or to Kamala Harris for that matter, but do you think there's anything she could have done differently specific to Michigan that would have carried the state for her, or did you think, looking back on it, a Trump victory was almost, as it were, baked in?
Yeah, I mean, just hindsight's 2020, obviously, but there were so many things that were done wrong. I mean, let's just start with the fact that the Democrats installed her as the nominee without any real democratic process. She was not clear on policy issues in an election that was fundamentally about the issues. She hid herself from the media for the first 60 to 70 days of the campaign. And her policy positions, even when she switched them over from what she was lobbying for in 2019, were not particularly friendly to people in the working class coalitions in places like Michigan. One of the CNN exit polls that I was looking at said that, or excuse me, Fox News exit polls actually that I was looking at said that in Michigan, besides the economy, immigration, democracy, and abortion, which is pretty consistent around the country, the issues that were specific to Michigan that people were citing were the electric vehicle mandate. And I apologize, the second one's escaping me. I got like 2 hours of sleep last night. And Israel. And we see Dearborn actually breaking for Donald Trump. He had the Arab American mayor of Hamtramck endorse him at his rally the other night. Kamala going all in on this idea that Jill Stein is like an evil Nazi spoiler candidate obviously didn't work. So, I mean, I just think between the Israel question of her being stuck between a rock and a hard place on appeasing two different demographics within the Democratic coalition, the poor economy trends of the Biden administration, the fact that nobody really wanted her to run in the first place, it would have been exceedingly difficult for her to convince voters that she was the right choice.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Arab American part of the Michigan problem. I think it is looking pretty clear like her proximity to Biden on that issue hurt her especially badly in Michigan. We're actually going to talk about that a little bit more later on the show. Amber, thank you so much for joining us. Get back here safe, and we'll do this again soon.
All right, thanks, y'all.